All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another installment of the Ghost Comms podcast, the best podcast for real, raw, authentic talks and interviews about anything in the Fortnite, Twitch, or esports space. Today we have a professional caster and analyst, a host of his own show, the FNTasia podcast, and a man the size of an actual giant. We have Leven2k with us today. Dude, thank you for joining us. I'm so excited to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be here, man. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm always excited to jump on and talk about Fortnite and whatever else it is. So, yeah, super excited to be here.
Yeah, sure. Well, so are we. Oh, and wait, did I say joined by my co-host Vishal? I hope I did.
No, you didn't, but it's okay.
Hi, Vishal. We love you too.
No, you don't.
So, give us your gaming and Fortnite kind of background, like what led you to Fortnite, and then obviously we'll get into kind of what led you into casting in the realm that you're in now.
Yeah, so from a gaming perspective, I won't go back too far because we'd probably be here for a long time. But before Fortnite, the main sort of game I was playing was Counter-Strike.
Okay.
I was really into CS, like competitive CS. Used to love watching just all CS events, whatever it was. But I had taken a bit of a break from gaming as a whole. I probably hadn't gamed for about 9-10 months at all. You know, my Xbox One at the time was unplugged. I didn't have it anywhere. My PC, I never used it for gaming. I was just focused on school a bunch.
Okay.
Right.
And then it got to winter break of 2017. It would have been winter break of 2017, and a couple of my friends were like, "Yo, Daniel, like, there's this new game called Fortnite. Let's play it. It's Battle Royale." I was a bit like, but they were really sort of egging me on to jump on. And again, it's like I hadn't played. My Xbox had been packed away for years. I hadn't even touched it. I was like, fine, and I dusted it off, plug it all in, and I get to playing Fortnite with them, and I remember I'd just fallen in love with it instantly. My first game, I remember my literal first ever game of Fortnite. I landed sort of like south of Tomato Town, and I'm running about in the middle of nowhere. Didn't land on like a single chest, just completely clueless. Find like an AR floor loot, and I spray a guy from afar, and like I kill him, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm the GOAT! Like I was locked in it straight away.
Yeah.
Then I keep playing with my friends. I keep playing with my friends on Xbox, and quickly become like the best of all my friends. Like I'm carrying us to wins and everything, having a great time, and being the sort of like gamer I am, and I was more so back then, super competitive. Like I'm in general in life, I'm a very competitive person. So instantly now, I'm doing better than my friends, and I want more. So I'm like, searching on YouTube, Fortnite. I'm noticing all the best Fortnite players I was seeing back then. It would have been guys like Mr. Grims, Ninja, all these guys. They're all playing on PC. So naturally for me, I'm like, well, I got to start playing on PC. I got to leave my Xbox friends. Like if I want to get better, I got to play on PC. So I started playing on PC, and just grinding, loving it. Back then, Fortnite Tracker was really different. I don't know if they still have it. I don't think they do. But back then they had like the regional leaderboards for like random stats. And at that time, like in early chapter 1, from probably like chapter 1, season 3 to season 5-ish, I had like the number 1 win rate in solos in London. I specifically was playing for it, like I was really trying to be that guy at the top of those like regional leaderboards. And that sort of helped me like get into early comp back then, because obviously you get people who'd reach out to you, be like, yo, do you want to play, and these kind of things. So that's my like Fortnite origins of getting involved in the scene and in competitive.
So did that, because that's really early on, just in the game's lifespan. I mean, I remember something you were saying there reminded me of that clip of Ninja, when he was talking about, because I think we were either asking about him in Myth. It might have been this early, or maybe him in Tfue, but this is like, that would have been like season 2, season 3. But when like Ninja was like, well, yeah, everyone's just playing for it was about Myth, because he was like, yeah, everyone's just playing for the leaderboard. Like, that's all you see. You don't see KD. You don't see how many kills are getting. You're just seeing the wins. And I think that is where the sitting in a 1-by-1 clip came from, where then Myth was
yeah. I
which is
remember
just.
that. I
But
remember
yeah,
that.
no, I remember that age though. But yeah, if we're talking that early, where we're measuring it by how high you are on the Fortnite tracker leaderboard, that's more OG than I think most kids even playing the game. I don't even know if they were born at that point. Is what it feels like sometimes.
Genuinely, yeah, genuinely.
Okay, cool. So does that continue on like to World Cup age? Or are we still competing at that time, or have we like pivoted into something by that time?
So back then, like the comp scene was very different because this was like back before they had actually announced competitive. People were just playing the game,
Right,
assuming
right,
there'd
right.
be some form of competitive because of how popular it was getting.
Right.
And they announced, 30 million World Cup or whatever, right? Like once they announced that, I remember at that point I'm already like involved in like early pro customs, right? Like back then
Yeah.
it was a very different scene.
Mhm.
Funnily enough, there's still some people around from back then who are here now, right? So guys like Mr. Savage are back then.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mongrel technically now was still playing back then. Like he was a
Yeah.
grinder. Trippin in EU, if you know Trippin.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't know Trippin was around that long
Yo,
ago. Okay.
Trippin was my old teammate. We used to play
Oh
squads together, me
wow.
and Trippin. Yeah.
Nice.
And guys, even like someone like Blood X and Chocolade, and those guys were like still players. Like they
Yeah.
weren't even coaches at that point. Like they were actually grinding to be pro. So
Yeah.
it was very different back then. And the announced 30 minute World Cup, obviously now a lot more focus and grind sort of comes in. But this is when I'm at like the year in school in the UK where it's GCSEs.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
like
Okay.
for me, like the household I was brought up in, like my mum was very like strict with stuff like that, where like she just didn't want me playing. She's like, you gotta
Mm.
focus on school.
Right.
And so for me, I'm like, okay, I need to focus on school. She's not really letting me play. My gear and my whole setup and stuff was terrible. Like we get to end gamers and I'm on like 30 FPS. Like it was almost
Yeah.
unplayable even. And people are starting to get better. It's getting more competitive. I'm slowly falling off already. I'm falling off back in chapter 1. So I clearly wasn't that good, as you can tell.
You could feel the end. Nah.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
genuinely. And so, like, I just naturally just sort of stopped playing. I just stopped grinding, stopped playing. But I wanted to stay involved in the scene.
Yeah, sure.
I wanted to stay involved. And I felt like I had an advantage in staying involved because I I was friends with the pro players at the time. Like all the
Sure.
best players in the
Sure.
world. I've been competing against them. I know them. I'm friends with them. So I started a podcast called the Leven podcast where I'd interview a lot of these guys because back then nobody was talking to these pro players. Nobody was
Yeah.
talking to any of these guys. And so I did the first episode of someone who I was good friends with at the time called Finex, who was like a very popular UK player. And I remember after that first episode, I get a DM on Discord from Mongrel as soon as, the episode ended. And he goes, that was so good, bro. Like, you should make more of those. And so I
Damn.
was like, well, I'm going to do that then. I'm never going to do that. And so, yeah, I kept that running for a bit. Slowed down with the podcast, started doing viewing parties and streaming a lot more, right? So,
Yeah.
I did a viewing party for World Cup at the time.
Mm.
Back then people weren't really doing like viewing parties like crazy. There was a couple people doing them, but like I was doing viewing parties in the EU quite consistently.
Right.
And then, slowly from viewing parties, I sort of get into casting, but that's a story in itself. So yeah, it was that was sort of how the progression from like
Okay.
playing the game competitively to not playing the game competitively sort of went for me.
Right.
So I really am just the rip-off, shorter, white American Leven, I guess. Yeah, you've done everything that I've already done or that I'm doing. You did this years ago. I don't even know where I go from there.
You're on a good path. You're on a good path.
Well, I guess so. I guess that's a good way to look at it. So I mean, yeah, let's get into the casting. So I mean, that sounds the end of that story kind of reminded me more of Aussie's kind of origin of like being involved and just doing watch parties and then kind of getting to the point where that naturally progressed. Like you're kind of trying to fill that time or make it more interesting or palatable for a viewer, and then you just kind of start casting over it. So what, like, is that kind of the process that was going on for you? And then how do we get to like the first official gig or the first like kind of more professional setting of that?
Yeah, so when I was doing my viewing parties, there was no element of me that was like, I'm gonna become a caster. That
Sure.
wasn't a
Right.
process in my head. Um, I, I was always interested in like broadcasting when I was in CS because I used to always think like the analysts were cool. So I always used to think I'd love to be an analyst in CS, but commentating it just never really drew to me. I was never interested. I had always in gaming had people tell me I should because of my voice. So like
sure.
back when I was playing CS and back when I was playing games way before Fortnite, people would always be like, "Yo, you should become a commentator." And like you know, so the idea was always in my mind, but it was never something I was pushing towards. And then, you know, in EU at the time, we had War Legends who were running a lot of the events. And the guy who was running War Legend, Kraz, he had gotten like a big sponsorship to do like a bigger sort of squad event at the start of chapter 2. So squad season, right?
Yeah.
And for the event, it was an EU event, and he was like, "I really want some EU talent," because at the time, I don't know if you know, it's still like this almost now, to be honest. But like, there just wasn't really many EU casters. There wasn't anybody at all. The only EU casters there were like other language people. So Solary had their guy who they had doing their streams. There was the Spanish guys as well. There's a couple Spanish guys who would do their stuff. Like I think Gataga back then was casting a lot of Fortnite stuff, but again in Spanish. So or French maybe, I can't remember what language it is. But either way, nobody was English speaking EU talent. And I at the time was just like the closest thing to that, just from being a viewing partier in EU. And so Kraz goes, "Do you want to commentate this?" And I'm like, sure. I don't mind. And he was like saying, "Yeah, I'm like, here's, you know, I'll pay you this for each event." And I'm like, a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, and he's, you know, being offered money to talk about Fortnite.
Yeah, there you
Hell
go.
yeah. Like, yeah, of course I'm doing it, you know?
I'm sure.
Yeah. I would have run home screaming to my mom, like, "Look at me, I'm a big shot now." Yeah.
I remember like almost flexing to my mum, because my mum was obviously still in that mentality of focus.
Right.
I was like, "Mum, look, I'm getting paid for this. Like, you gotta let me. You gotta let me cook.
Yeah,
like,
let me
I'm
shine.
yeah, let me shine."
Yeah.
So that was like my first official casting gig. Then from there, I just kept doing smaller events, smaller stuff, working a lot with War Legend as well. Kraz would always stuff, which was really great. And then like a year and a bit later, I think, I get hit up to do DreamHack. And that was like a much bigger gig in terms of like rate. That was like 10x what I was starting off with the War Legend stuff.
Sure.
You know? So it was like now it was like.
Was this DreamHack online or was this DreamHack?
DreamHack online. It was
so this is during. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So
do you remember?
2021 maybe? 2020?
Yeah. I was gonna say probably season 4 or 5. I assume of chapter 2 or.
Yeah, well, it would have been 2020. It would have been during 2020. So
okay.
That
season
makes sense.
4. Yeah, probably season 3 or 4. Yeah.
So I got asked to do those online DreamHacks, and at that point I now started university. So I'm at university studying business management, and I look at the DreamHack check and I'm like,
school looks
about you more, And at the time I had sort of been tipped off from like some of the other talent and just people in that space. I'd been tipped off that basically like this like DreamHack was being used as a trial for FNTasia. Like they wanted to see how I did on DreamHack, and if I did good, they'd ask me to do FNCS. Was sort of like the vibes I'd been getting and what I was being told. Again, being the competitive person I am, okay, we're locking in. We're locking in, and I remember putting my all into those, you know, DreamHacks I was doing. You know, I'm so thankful for Bala TW and Shy Wage at the time, especially Bala at the time. He used to, you know, put in a lot of work to actually help me. Like we'd literally do like board review sessions, practice casts and stuff where he, you know, he really put me through it, but it helped me for the better. And, you know, I like to think I did all right on those DreamHacks. And the next year, chapter 2, season 5, I get asked to do FNCS, and you know, I've been there doing that now for the past 3 years.
Okay, I want to ask one question about casting, and then I kind of want to pivot back before we get too deep into all the competitive stuff. But was the prep kind of overwhelming? Was that like one of the elements of the process that was pretty unknown to you, like coming in as I don't want to say a novice. I'm not trying to disrespect your level of talent, but like when you were starting out, because that was something, when we started interviewing casters and stuff, and like I remember after we recorded with Lash the first time, um, he like we were talking in call, and he had a show coming up, and it was a smaller show, and he shows me the spreadsheets, and he shows me all of this stuff that he's doing in regards to the prep before, and I was like, oh wow, that's the job. Like, showing up, actually being able to cast and all that, like that's such a small portion, and I feel like there's an echo of that on the content creator side, because that's the perspective that I always come from. But like, was that something that was overwhelming for you at first, or surprising to you?
Um, it wasn't. It wasn't overwhelming. I didn't really struggle with that initially, just
Right.
because of where I was coming from. Like I
Yeah,
was already
sure.
covering EU,
Mm,
like so I knew, and they really only had me like doing mostly EU tournaments. So it's like I knew
mm.
everybody. I knew all the storylines. I knew all the
Yeah,
backgrounds. I
yeah,
knew all
yeah.
the players. So for me, it was never too difficult. There were certain fundamentals of commentary that I didn't necessarily understand.
Mm,
I think the one advantage I've always had is that I've always been very like just naturally charismatic. I felt like I've never
mm.
felt
Yeah.
uncomfortable in front of people like performing. Like I
Yeah,
used to always
yeah.
like just love doing that, Like in school, I wanted to be the guy that got up in front of the class and presented, and
Oh, okay.
so I've always naturally been inclined to do stuff like that.
Mm,
Um, so I never, for me, it was always just like, cool, let me get these certain casting things down in terms of understanding like certain pacing, how I sound,
yeah,
what to talk
yeah.
about, and when. Um, but in terms of like the preparation stuff, that was never too tough for me. There's been times when it's like, you definitely acknowledge it's a lot. Like there's times I'm like, gosh, this is really a lot of stuff I need to know.
Yeah,
But
Mhm.
it's one of those things where I've enjoyed it.
yeah.
I enjoyed
Sure.
the game. I enjoy the people. So
Yeah.
you know, I've never really struggled at my angle early on. A lot of the time, and where I found my edge compared to other talent was I stuck with what got me there in the first place, just relationships with players.
Mm,
Right.
So, my angle was always like, I'm gonna let you know this opinion or this thought, and it's come
Mhm.
directly from this player, like,
yeah.
and
Sure.
back then nobody ever could offer that narrative or that perspective. So I
Mm.
used to always lean on that a lot to help me out.
Was there
S-
anything? Oh, go ahead, Vishal.
Okay. All I was gonna no, no. I think you should ask yours because then I think I have something to like sum up the casting part for him. So
Okay.
you
Okay. Was
yeah.
there anything in particular? Because I know for me, like I can echo a lot of what you were saying in regards to. I know that my comfortability behind a camera or just talking in general, a lot of that came from the performing arts. I was a stage actor. I was in musical theater, like all of that stuff. So that like sense of like shame or embarrassment or just all of that stuff faded really early on in my life. Is there something
Yeah,
specific for you that kind of did that, or were you just one of those people where you're like, no, give me the public speaking? That's just kind of always been your thing.
it's always been my thing, man.
Yeah. Okay.
School
Mm.
plays when I was younger, like I remember, like when I think I was 8 years old. We had like the school play
Yeah. Yeah.
at my primary school. Like I was like the lead
Yeah.
character. Like
Okay.
I've
Yeah.
always just loved like doing that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
there was points in my life where I did think about taking maybe a more performing arts,
Mm.
type of career line, and then never sort of panned out. But yeah, I've just always I can't pinpoint like a moment that like
Yeah.
unchained me and made
Sure.
me feel
Sure.
free. It's just
No, I
I've
mean,
just always
Right.
loved it.
when you
Yeah,
don't have that, because I mean, psychology, that is humans' number one fear. It's not death. It's not anything else. It is public speaking. It is like
Yeah.
the number one fear of human beings. But I just always find so interesting. It's like I'm in college too, and I will make this barter with every time we have a group project. I will say, hey, I love speaking in front of people. I love presenting. So if you guys will let me do like the least amount of work possible, I will present the whole thing. And most people are like
yeah,
free. They're like, okay, we'll take all of your section and you just
yeah.
present at the end. So it can feel like a superpower sometimes. When you have that, when you don't have that like hang up like everyone else does, and you're like, no, like I actually like it. I want to be in front of people. I want to be speaking or presenting or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, but Vishal, you're
Yes. So I feel like this is more of like a realization question. What was like that? You know how everybody has their key moment to the career that they want, like that realization that they want to have that career.
mm,
What was your key moment to when you realized you wanted to be a caster? Like either if
mm.
it was a gig or a moment on your own, like self-actualization moment, like what was it, if you remember it?
Um, I think for me it would have just had to been those like the dream hacks I mentioned, right? Like when I
Mm.
first sort of got offered that gig, again it was like the financially the situation I was in at the time. You know, I grew up not no money. I grew up poor,
Mm.
like straight poor, like just
Right.
no money. And I'm going to uni, and when you're at uni, you're poor. You don't have
Yeah.
money,
Yeah.
like so.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
before I had gotten the dream hack offer, it's like me and my friends at uni, like we're splitting pizzas. Like we're going like
Yeah.
all three of us putting in money to get like a pizza to eat, and we're I didn't have anything, but then again, it's like I get this now, and like I feel a bit of freedom, and I'm like, ooh,
Mm.
like there's something here, and what I can do this more consistently.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was, I think, for me when I was like, yeah, I need to do more of this. This could be because I
Yeah.
wasn't enjoying uni, and I knew it wasn't for me. I just
Yeah.
sort of went because I felt like I needed to go to be doing something. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
For the degree. Yeah.
yeah, that was sort of my moment
Mhm.
Mm.
for sure.
I see. So, do you feel like you have more, not more financial, do you feel like you have the financial freedom that you had dreamed of at a younger age now, or do you feel like you're still aiming towards that?
I'm definitely still. I've always had big ambition when I was younger, so I'm definitely
Right.
still like aiming towards like. There's a point that I know I want to get to, and I'm not
Mm.
there yet.
Mhm.
Um, I would say for a fact that I'm very blessed, and like my situation, I've been very blessed and favored to be where I am now, and to have had
Mm.
the years I've had. So you know, I'm definitely in a good spot, and I never have to worry about money, right now,
Right.
and
Yeah.
God willing, I won't have to anytime soon.
Sure.
For sure.
But yeah, that's there's always room to go. I've seen clicks, right?
100%.
I've seen clicks
Yeah.
say, yeah, like I made 4 mil, and I was like, I just wanted more. Like,
Yeah.
like you're always,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you're always gonna want more,
Yeah.
no matter
Sure.
how good you are a lot of the time.
Sure.
So, I try and aim for like, in terms of like aiming for like actual financial like figures, I try to aim for like an ideal lifestyle, and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do I want to live
100%.
my life, and what do I need
Yeah.
to be able to live like that?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
100.
I get that. Yeah. So before we get too deep into competitive, because I know that will be the bulk of the conversation for sure. I'm kind of really interested. I did not know that like a podcast was a big part of your origin. Like I knew you did FNTasia and then you restarted that recently, which I think is an awesome thing. But I'm super interested because like this is my baby. This is my favorite medium
yeah,
by a significant margin and I mean it just isn't done a lot in the space and I just think
cool.
the space is really immature. The space is really young. I think this is kind of the antithesis to a lot of the ways that they want to consume content and think about content and all that stuff. So like what just kind of drew you to that early on? Was it just like I want to do this as a passion thing, or did you think that it was going to go somewhere? Like what was the idea behind that? And did you enjoy it? I mean, obviously, if you started another podcast, you probably did, but
Yeah. The main thing at the time was, again, there was just nothing like it in
Mm,
the scene.
Right.
yeah,
Nobody. So for one, at the time, genuinely, there was no other. There was only one other Fortnite podcast, and it was Monster D Face's podcast,
yeah,
the Fortnite podcast,
we
as it's
love
called.
Monster. Yeah,
Um, and at the time as well, like it was the Fortnite podcast, but it was very general. Like it was like
hmm
the Fortnite. It was talking about everything Fortnite. It wasn't like
yeah,
specifically competitive.
sure,
Um, and so for me, it was like there's just a gap here.
mm,
And I think once I did the first one and there was good feedback, it let me know, oh, people want to hear from these players. Like,
yeah,
because a lot of the time, especially back then, like nobody in EU was really streaming, and there
Right.
wasn't conversations about competitive happening. So
mm,
yeah, it was just like there was a gap there. I've always really enjoyed podcasts.
yeah,
I've always really enjoyed podcasts, and I've always enjoyed having conversations. Like I love
yeah,
just having conversations with people. So it was one of those things that for me it was just like it's a no-brainer to do this.
mm,
Right.
And a part of me always wishes I kept just doing it at the time.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
Because I look back and I can't even remember why I stopped doing it, to be
mm,
honest. But
Right.
I wish I would have kept doing it. But yeah, it's podcasts are good, man. Podcasts are good. I think as like you said, it's hard because podcasts a lot of are about like depth, right? And
yeah,
you can build a lot of
100.
depth, and in this community, that's not as rewarded, sadly.
yeah.
Mhm.
But I still think there's room there for people to do things and
Yeah,
test out things.
I agree. I mean, we've said we've beat this to death at this point, but I mean, we started in wake of brand risk. Arab's podcast with Edwin, and when he stopped doing that because he went IRL, we like I don't know. We were both heavily impacted by multiple episodes, especially like I remember watching both of Ron's, and the one where Ron like really went into detail about stuff that's really untalked about in the content creator scene and niche and all that, and like just like to feel a connection with a creator that's deeper than surface level in the Fortnite scene was really special to me. And we wanted to like, okay, like there are stories here, these are people with depth to them, and we want to get into that and have those conversations. So that was why we started this. And I think my goal ever since I started content creation in the scene, or trying to make whatever impact I'm trying to make, was more to bring what isn't there into any capacity, as opposed to just like try and capitalize what already is done well, or what already exists and all that. I mean, I was a youth pastor for several years, and like that. So to me, it's like that's kind of this type of stuff is like I want to bring that depth to and maturity and all of that stuff to the scene, because it needs it, and honestly, even
And there's
even
people
in
who want it.
yeah, 100%. Even in more recent years, I think just seeing the demographic get older that's been with Fortnite now for 5-6 years, I think we're seeing more of a shift, where it's becoming more appreciated, and I'm getting more feedback from people, and like where they're just like, oh wow, like this was missing, and you're starting to see even the pros are kind of getting over the hump of that age, and like it's cool to see the game and the community kind of mature a little bit into it, and grow into it. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on it, because that's super interesting to me. I love that that's part of your origin. Um,
Yeah.
so
Always hold podcasts dear to my heart. That's why like I always like whenever people ask me to do podcasts,
yeah,
I'm always down. Just because
yeah,
it's like I was there. Like I was there at that point where
yeah,
You
I was trying to get people on to do a podcast, and it's like,
yeah.
and
Well,
you understand the
this, the
enjoyment of it
struggle then.
though.
Goodness.
oh man, I know the struggle. I know the
Yeah,
struggle. Trust me.
it's
Trust me.
Yeah.
something. So we're to pivot back to casting, where obviously you finally get asked to do FNCS. Um, how does life change in the time? Like, do you know that you're on for several FNCSs, or is this like you're on for an FNCS basis? I mean, I kind of know the answer, but like, how does life become once you've landed that gig, and then you're like, you're just kind of constantly in this, what do you do to make sure that you're getting the gig, or are you starting to make content to like try and bolster that, or what is life like after chapter 2 season 5?
I mean, one thing that was terrible back then was that there was zero job security.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You didn't know at all what the future held, and
Mhm.
even worse, you didn't know in some instances that you would be doing FNCS until like a week or 2 weeks before it started.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it was chalked. Like it was gone. Like,
yeah,
like
yeah,
I don't know. I still don't know what gave me the courage to just like drop out of uni and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Because at any given moment, it could have just been raps.
yeah, sure.
But to be fair, I do know why I didn't. Um, I've just always had like a delusional level of self belief, so it was just always like, yeah, but it can't be me. Like genuinely, I've always just had such self confidence. I've always been
Right.
like, yeah, but it can't
Okay.
be me.
Hey, there you go.
And that's come back to bite me in the future. But yeah, it was really tough, man. Like life
Yeah.
changed in the sense of like things were great because once I got onto FNCS, it was like the guaranteed dates and the guaranteed work aspect of it was just like
Yeah.
financially, genuinely, like financially, that changed my life.
Yeah.
Right.
I went from being somebody who, you know, had nothing, genuinely nothing, to their name, to now I make an income. I started making more than my mother.
Yeah.
It's just me and my mum. My mum raised me. I started making more than my mum. So like now I'm in a position where like, I can actually do things in my life. So it was definitely life changing from that POV, but also, you know, I didn't then, just like go start splashing money so like life didn't
Yeah.
really change, but it did. Like the
Yeah.
potential outlook on life changed, but in
For
terms of like
sure.
my day-to-day life, like things didn't change. I still, get on, play games and
Yeah.
chill
Yeah.
and do whatever,
Sure. Sure.
Were you an only child growing up? Because you're saying you and your mom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Only child.
understood.
Okay.
So
And did you have like like I know you were saying how you grew up more on the poor side or on the more
no,
non-financially wealthy side.
poor, poor, bro. Like, poor.
uh, right. So you said, so do you have any other family that lives in the vicinity of within where you live?
No.
So it was
So
just you and your mother, really.
just me and my mum. All my
Mm.
family lived in Ghana when I was younger, but then now
Mhm.
most of them are in America.
Right.
Mm.
So yeah, it was just me and my mum.
Understood.
Yeah.
But that's so I want to kind of ask because I was looking at a video literally like not even a week ago. It was one of Arab's videos where I forgot what event this was, but this is when all the EU pros went to a IRL event. I think it was a 2-day event, and they were all playing the solo cash cup there. I forgot what it
Media
was.
day.
Media day, media
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
this one specific clip where Akko's playing, and you just, for some random reason, just started casting it. And
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
the
yeah.
funniest thing I've ever watched. I just want to ask, like, the feedback that you get from the community, so players, fans, all that, do you get like a lot of messages about it? Do you get IRL feedback and for in-person events, of course? What does that kind of do for you? Does that like motivate you, and how does it kind of make a positive or a negative impact on you?
I am very grateful to the community.
Mm.
Right.
I get so much positive love and support.
Mm.
It's
For sure.
it's unreal. And um I've always tried to maintain great relationships with players because again, that was just sort of my origin. That's what I did
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's always definitely helped me that I've always tried to keep that relationship. I think sometimes it's harder for other like talent to do that because, like we were sort of saying off air, a lot of the other casters are like 30. And
Yeah.
these
Right.
guys are
Yeah.
kids. I'm the same age as a lot of these guys,
Yeah.
slightly older, but like with most like with guys like Queasy and Thomas, for example, I'm like we're all the same age.
For
So it's
sure.
like
Yeah.
it's always been easier for me to relate to these guys and actually like be friends with them because
Sure. Sure.
we could be. Um, but yeah, like the feedback I've always had has always been super positive, and it definitely like gives me like that confidence boost. Um, and it wasn't always like that, to be fair. Um, I don't know. I've spoken to some people about this before. I don't know how to like coin this term, but I've always had this sort of sense of like competitive jealousy. Like I'm not like a jealous person, but I've always had like because I've always believed in myself so much and known like how
Right.
good I can be or believe in my
Mm.
abilities, you know, especially early on when I wasn't getting that love and that support because there were other casters that
Mm.
people liked and loved. There was always that part of me that was like, nah, I'm gonna show people, Like
Mm.
Right.
I'm like those guys are great. I love those guys, whoever it was at the time, but it's like, nah, like people I want people to see that I am like him.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um and that just always drove me to improve. Like
Yeah.
in any
Mhm.
way I could. Like I always wanted to try find an edge to improve. And there was a time when again, you'd ask people who your favorite casters, and my name would never be mentioned.
Mm.
I remember
Yep.
somebody's gun. He started his like when he started like the comp awards thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Definitely comforts. Yeah.
the first year of that or something. When they did like the vote for cast of the year, or whatever. Like I wasn't a nominee. I wasn't even like
Mm.
on the ballot for it. Naturally, like it was whether I should have been or not doesn't matter. In my head, cool.
Yeah.
People don't see me that way. Cool. I'm gonna change that. Like I'm gonna
Mm.
Right.
make sure they do start to see me and think of me in that sort of conversation. So
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah. I
always
mean
how I've
that.
been. And yeah,
I totally know what you mean. I mean, yeah, I would call it just competitive drive or whatever it is. I mean, to just want to
yeah,
try and um be the best at the thing that you are, whatever you're doing. I mean, and that's like, yeah, I want to maximize that. I want to, prove to people that I can do whatever all of those other people can do.
yeah.
100%. Um, wh- oh man, I had a question and then I kind of kind of lost it, but go ahead. Go ahead, Vishal.
You wanna come back to you? I was gonna
Yeah.
ask like you were saying, like you kind of wanted to prove to people who you were, what you did, and like what you really were. Like you, because of course you said from a young age, like you just wanted to stand out to people.
Yeah.
So was there like I'm not gonna ask for specific names, of course, unless it's a very big name that you might have got to now. But was there like a general consensus of people that you wanted to kind of show your what is it called your talents to, or was it like someone in specific, or was it a group in specific? Like what was there?
It was everyone, I guess, in terms of like just who did I want to start getting that recognition from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'd say everyone, bro. I'd
Right.
say I wanted to get it from, the fans watching.
Mm.
I wanted to get it from my peers. I wanted to get it from Epic.
Right.
I just wanted everybody to see me in a light where it's like, because I felt like I was good enough. I felt like
Mm.
I was at the level of some of the
100%.
best people there, or at least I felt like I had more to give, and so
Mm.
I just wanted people to see that. And and so there wasn't anyone specifically that I was like, yeah, I'm trying to. Because again, it's not like it wasn't a vindictive thing. It wasn't like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna
Right.
prove that brother wrong. It's not like someone did me
Right.
dirty. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
watch, bro.
yeah, yeah.
A couple of years, it wasn't.
Well,
It's never been like that.
and that kind of leads me into this question because we've talked about this a lot, how the distinction of the typical culture between between players, between creators, like a lot of it is that mentality of if I'm doing well, you can't be, or you can't be doing as well, and there's a lot of like, it's not just I need to succeed, it's others kind of need to fail, or they need to not succeed as much as I am. And there's a lot
Yeah,
of that mentality. And like all the casters we've talked to, that is not the case. There's like this tight knit
right.
community
Yeah,
where they're all pushing each other, they're all growing each other. There's so much mentorship
Yeah.
and sharing and sharpening of each other. Just that process. Do you think that was important to you? Like, do you accredit some of your success to that?
absolutely. Yeah, I mentioned them briefly earlier, but like guys like Bala and
Yeah,
Shia,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
really helped me out. Like they, in
For
terms of like
starters,
helping me accelerate to
Hmm.
becoming the best sort of talent I could be. Those guys were so instrumental. I learned so
Mm.
much from them. Um and yeah, in Fortnite, that's how the talent's always been. I hear stories from other games through talent I
right.
know, and it's nightmares. People again just trying to one up each other. Everyone's always trying to
Yeah,
push somebody else
yeah.
down to push
100%.
themselves up. And in Fortnite, I've never felt that.
Mm.
It's everyone just gets along so well, and
Mm-hmm. For
it's
sure.
it's one of those things that I think it's very rare in esports,
Yeah,
because in most other
Yeah.
games it's like that from what I hear. But
yeah.
See, like
Fortnite's
I,
Is it
yeah. Go ahead.
is it like a passion of the game thing? Do you think that's just a uniting factor? Like that just, or is it like, is there something about, you know like that you just all happen to share in common besides wanting to be a caster? I mean, to be honest, like the casters from my personal experience that had the pleasure of interviewing are just some of the like most genuine, authentic people,
Pastor community is
just in
amazing.
general. Like I mean, I'm talking some of the best people I've ever met in any sphere, in any
Yeah.
discipline, whatever. Period. Like I don't know what it is about casting Fortnite that draws these like saints of human beings to
Yeah,
it,
no,
because they
genuinely.
really are. They're some of the best people I've ever met. I don't know.
It's probably
Yeah,
also a maturity scale, right?
Oh yeah,
Like
100%.
100% maturity scale in the sense that like this community of course starts at a very young age of Fortnite
Hmm.
comp players and also casuals that can play whatever age. But then when you go into the caster community, like Leven
Yeah,
said himself, they're like there's people in their 30s, there's people in their 20s,
yeah.
like people that are older than the general
You,
consensus
you
age
won't find
in this
success unless you're some level of mature and professional and
for
for
sure.
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that kind of leads me into like what was it like finding like-minded individuals
Mm.
in casting, like people going for not necessarily the same goals as you, but people that wanted to have the same impact as you, or people that wanted to be known for different things but still were trying to achieve what you were trying to achieve.
What in terms of like what was it like trying to find these people, or
Not finding necessarily what it was like meeting them, like what was that initial
I
reaction
think
to it.
I think to sort of draw in what both of you are saying, that it's I don't know how nice or how everyone in Fortnite in terms of casters is just so nice. Like I don't get it. They are
Yeah.
just the saints of the world.
Yeah.
So it's always been pretty easy when it comes to meeting these people because they are
Mm.
just nice people, and you know I've not always felt like it's been the case where everyone has the same drive as me or
Mm.
goal as me. It's never, but it's never mattered because everyone is just so genuinely nice
Yeah.
and good intentioned.
Right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's always been one of those things where I've always just found it easy. Like for me, again, I've always been willing to help people out,
Yeah.
regardless of what it is, because I don't see it as like a competitive thing.
Right.
Even if it is, like I don't see it as that. Like
Yeah.
I think a problem I always had was when you're on the broadcast, you know,
Right.
it's a reflection of me. What goes on the broadcast is a reflection of me. Because when people
Mm.
talk about the broadcast out and outside of it, you know, they go the casters, like they group us all together anyway, right?
Sure. Sure.
Right.
So
Yeah.
for me, I've just wanted it to be as good as possible because if it's rubbish,
Mm.
people look at me and they're like, oh, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So for
Sure.
me,
Right.
I've always wanted it to be as good as I can, and I think a lot of people have that same sort of, you know, mentality of like, yeah, they just want it to be as good as it can because you
Mm.
know it reflects on all of us at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I definitely. I'm not gonna try and say I'm some Sherlock Holmes, but I think I will take a crack at. I mean, my whole, I guess, underlying theory for anybody who's successful in this space, and really life in general, but I think esports specifically, just given where it's at and where the industry is at and all of that stuff, is like you just have to be passion filled, man. You cannot really half-ass it. You can't just like so many people kind of blindly zombie through their careers when they don't care about them and when they view it as a 9 to 5 and whatnot. And like esports, you cannot really do that. It is just like,
Not at all.
and honestly, the I mean, some creators are at that point where they're just kind of at this complacency and they're trying to like keep this plateau so they can keep doing what they're doing, and you can tell who those people are. But I don't
Right.
know, the casters, like I've always seen this kind of like they always have that renewed passion because I think they've found something by happenstance that they love. You know, it was something that started as passion that transitioned into something else, and I think those are the people that are the backbone of this entire industry, are the backbone of Fortnite competitive and any other esport. It's just like it has to be passion backed, it has to be passion filled, and that's like some of the most passion that I've ever seen is in that talent pool, the casters and whatnot. So maybe that would be my attempt at an answer. But yeah, I mean seriously, it is crazy. You know, you have conversations with these guys off camera or on Twitter or whatever. I mean, that they're always going to respond. They're always willing to help out. Like if they have the time or the resources, like they will give them to you. And that's
Yeah.
just so counterculture to like, especially my experience as a content creator. Man, that is night and day difference. Those guys are
So different.
everyone's at each other's throats. Everyone's using everybody, lying to everybody. Like it is, I need to keep you down so that I can succeed.
Yeah.
It's really refreshing, in full honesty. Um, so now finally kind of into we'll go into competitive and that conversation. Only 40 minutes into the episode, but um, if you could change, you know, like what would you change about competitive if you were given the opportunity, just free reign, like today?
It's loaded for sure.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I've always been the king of identifying a problem and not having solutions. So I'll try
Mm.
my best to give some semblance of solution. I think one of the biggest things is that there needs to be better pathways
Mm.
to the
Okay.
top. Um, I think the top level of competitive Fortnite is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's what's kept me here for so long. I just find it so entertaining, you
Right.
know. And whenever I've gotten a taste of it myself, I've loved it. You know, the feeling of playing a stacked end game and
Mm.
moving zone is you just can't really get that anywhere else. And I've always thought that like it's a shame that we can't give more people that experience because I feel like
Mm.
a lot of people would fall in love with it. You play any other competitive games, and regardless of what level you're at, it's a simulation of the top level
Mm.
of
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
game in some way.
Right.
Um, you know, you could be any rank on Valorant or CS,
Yeah.
and it is a simulation of what a top level pro game looks like. Whereas,
Yeah.
you know, most games of Fortnite that get played aren't anything in the
Yeah.
realm of what a competitive Fortnite game looks like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I wish we could have like better pathways. So that obviously I know they've, you know, tried, you know, the ranked and stuff, and I'm sure
Yeah.
there's ways to improve that to get that in a spot where it could be better.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, in terms of competitive offerings, um, I'd love us to just have more lands, man.
Yeah.
And you know, I understand the
Well,
complications of lands because the logistics of it, getting that many people in one
Yep.
place is just nightmare. But I really enjoy land environments,
Yeah.
and now that I've again had like a taste of more of that, it's something that's needed. I'd love us to just explore more of the world as well.
Yeah.
Um, there's so many places that, you know, Fortnite spans so far and wide. I'd love us to just
Mm.
do things in more places. I think that'd be
Sure.
great for
Sure.
growing the game and growing its popularity and
right.
growing a dedicated fan base around it. So
Yeah.
those are sort
Yeah.
of like the rough things I'd like to
Sure.
do, like
Yeah.
very broad.
That,
But
that
No,
was a question I should have asked. What was like your first LAN experience, and
my
how was that?
first in-person experience was that what you were talking about, the media day. That was the first time I
That
ever
was your first LAN
flew out.
experience?
Mm.
Well, yeah,
That
like it was just the
yeah,
first time ever flying out for Fortnite.
Mm.
right.
So that was that first experience. In terms of like actual LAN event, first one would have been that same year. There was like a dream hack like a couple weeks
Yeah.
after that
Mm-hmm.
media
Mm.
day.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a dream hack in Sweden. That would have been like the first like proper LAN
Yeah.
I'd gone to. And obviously first like arena experience was globals.
Yeah.
Because I didn't go to invitational. So I mean,
Yeah.
every single one I love. Like
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I just want more of them. Just give us
Yeah.
more, please. Any
100%.
more we can get, I'll take.
Right.
I kind of want to get into this conversation because you were talking about it a little bit, and that you articulated it fantastically. That you know the and we talked about this with Reese a little bit. The top level of a Fortnite game, there is so many things that go into that are so hard to like. You can't divulge all that in a casting time. You can't divulge all that in a 10-minute YouTube video. Like the game is just so complex and deep. You know, and like you said, like a Valorant, every game of Valorant, obviously, yes, they're not at pro level, but
At all.
it's going to be some kind of crude, you know, pseudo version of what you
Yeah.
could get at the top levels. They're going to look so much more similar side to side. Whereas Fortnite, like to even begin to understand the decision that guy, like you know, they're making 30 decisions a second in an end game,
Yeah.
and to understand each one of those, you'd need so much history and um it's so hard to break those barriers and get to that point. I mean, I tell like people ask me, you know, how do I get into competitive? How do I get better? And I'm like, dude, you have to suck. Like, and I mean, really, really suck for like way longer than you think.
Yeah.
Before you can start seeing some like real results. Like you have to commit to this, arguably more than most other esports. And you know, you have to get master classes. You have to start watching YouTube videos. You have to start VOD reviewing. You have to start scrimming. Like that, it is a
For months.
process and a process and a half to like get anywhere close to that level. You have to love the tune. Like that is just, I don't know.
Yeah.
But what is it about it? Because I find this question super interesting. And we asked Reese this. What it is about the game that is drawing to you? Is it the battle royale aspect? Is it the mechanics? Is it the combination of the two? Like what is it for you that you're like, this is Fortnite for me?
I think initially it was always just the mechanics. Like
Mhm.
in the building mechanic, they just have the most unique thing in all of gaming,
Yeah.
and there's
Yeah,
just nothing
truly.
like it. Um, and that to me was always just a draw of Fortnite in a
Mhm.
very simple way. It's just like you have this really cool and fun mechanic that is, you know, feels almost limitless at times,
Yeah.
and has so much, you know, sort of potential, and sort of untapping that. And then naturally, like a battle royale is just, you know, I think part of why battle royales became so popular is just because there is this natural draw of a battle royale where it
Yeah.
just feels in almost a very sinister way. It just feels very human. Of like you're just trying to out survive everyone. Like you're trying to just like be the last man standing. Like you're trying to be the
Yeah.
best. I don't know. Like I feel like there's so many metaphors you can draw to it.
A win is just so much more potent when you know that you were up against 99 other people and
Right.
you came out on top. I mean, like winning in a team game where it's a 4v4 or whatever, like that, it feels great. But when you have conquered an entire lobby saying, I'm the best man, I'm the last man standing, I mean, I don't think anyone forgets their first Fortnite win, man. Like you're that like your heart beating, the adrenaline at its maximum, you're like scared for your life for that to turn into that victory screen. You're just like, I don't know, dude. It is borderline euphoric.
For real.
It's just, yeah, it is. It's so much more potent, for sure. But I don't know. I'm always interested to have that conversation. I know we talked about this with Reese, because like for me, as much as I love the BR format, I think what makes Fortnite is those mechanics. I think you could translate it to a lot of other things, and it would still have, to me, what makes it its identity is just the most unique mechanics in a shooter, and in all, like you said, in all of gaming. I think maybe only Portal piques my interest as much as as Fortnite did, in that sense, just from a purely like intellectual, oh, this is insane to think about. I don't know, and that's why like ESL, I was really disappointed that they made that zero build, and I totally understand why they did, but like to me that's just such a missed opportunity, because
is what Fortnite
exactly
is.
Like I'm like, this is just third person COD or Halo or whatever at this point. And that, I don't know. I mean, that we had that whole conversation with Reese, and that was one of my disappointments, was because I feel like you could remove so much, but when you do that, and like zero build zero build is basically its own game. I'm not even going to touch that. It has its draws, it has its whatevers. I play it from time to time, but to me, it's like, yeah, you're playing something called Fortnite, but that's not Fortnite to me. It's a different game. It's a different community. Like there's so much to that. But since we touched on it, I know you touched on this on the FNTasia podcast as well. Like, thoughts on ESL as a format, as a tournament. Like, are you happy that we're having more unique third parties? What your thoughts on the actual game mode? And I know you went over a lot of this, but
yeah, I like it in the sense of it gives me hope for the future, that people are willing to try new things and to try and create new formats of significance.
Yeah.
Something that like, because for a while now, zero build has sort of been the second track to comp, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a good second track. I'm just not a fan of zero build for a lot of the reasons you listed above. I could count on my hands how many zero build games I've played myself. I just don't play it. It's not interesting to me. And so from that POV, I thought it was really cool. The actual execution and the plan of what they have going on right now, there's still a lot left to be desired.
Yeah.
I really just want somebody to try and do something that feels more Fortnite, even if it's on a smaller scale. And it's why when an ESO initially got announced, the first thing that popped into my mind was, wait, someone's trying this. What is stopping us from, in a couple years' time, like someone just making like a smaller scale version of like the BR map and of a BR map, and maybe we have this like what the ESO format is, but actually BR. Like there's so many things and so many ways you can go with it.
Yeah.
Now without getting into the fairy tale land, again, on staying on ESL, it's like I think the most interesting part about it for me right now is just the team building and seeing players interact with each other in certain ways. And it's like it's cool. It's part of why I always loved squads way back in the day, because that was always fun to me. Especially coming from a game like CS, where you get a lot of that, where it's like, oh, this team's picking up this player because they want him in this role, and it's like I've always just found that stuff, those sort of X's and O's, really cool. And so ESL's kind of bringing that back for me. But I really do want more in terms of just proper organization and structure. Better roadmap, clearer vision of like what does the future hold. We talked about it recently, but it's like, one, they've not actually officially announced it. Everybody sort of knows what's going on, but they've not actually made an official announcement. Two, like what's the long-term play for this? Because a lot of what's happening right now is a lot of orgs are just picking up people for this event and then that's it. What
Yeah.
happens once the esports World Cup is done? Do we just now not care about this for like a whole year? Like what? Like
Sure.
I want more. You know, it's not. It's almost anticlimactic in that sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully we can get a bit more out of them.
Yeah. I feel like it's a drop ball in a lot of ways. In full honesty, like I feel like the premise, if you explained it to me, like omitting the fact that it was zero build, I would be hyped. Like, okay, instead of the BR, we're gonna go towards the more traditional respawn team based game modes. You know, where you're gonna have set maps, set roles, kind of, you know, whatever. You know, and getting into kind of this blend of Fortnite and traditional esports, like a Call of Duty. I mean, all the modes have been in Halo, Call of Duty, like all of those more traditional shooters. And that was my assumption was just, oh yeah, you're taking the most unique mechanic in shooters and adding it, like you're putting that twist onto the classic shooter game mode. So to be let down in that sense was really like, oh man, I felt so defeated. I was like, well, then there's not really a point for this. I can't get behind it in the same way. Like, yes, an alternative track and team base is cool. It's a cool idea. And like from an org perspective, because I love orgs. I wish that orgs were way more involved and recognized in all of that in Fortnite competitive. But like, I'm just like, oh man, like yeah, people are just gonna sign this roster. It's gonna be zero build, and like even the pros, dude, they only do it for the money, the zero build stuff. I mean, I'm sorry that's the case. They just want to make more money, and they're gonna do what they need to do it. I mean, you saw the same thing with was it Anas? That whole the Mr. Beast death run thing where you got $1 million. Like they only show up to do that so that they can make money, and like that, you know. I get it. Like he made $1 million in that death run or whatever it was. Like, yeah, go ahead. You know, you have equal right as everyone else competing to do that. But I want that to not be the only motivator, the sole motivator. And I think SPG touched on this when you guys talked about it in the FNTasia podcast. But like, if it weren't for the prize pool, nobody would give a shit. And as soon as that's over, if there's not a track, a consistent, if there's not a consistent, you know, monetary incentive for it, it will die. It will become completely irrelevant. So I'm like, I understand, and I do wish that there was something alternative. And you know, when we talked about this with Reese, it was like, yeah, the BFC, like Zone Wars. If you did Zone Wars, like 4v4 Zone Wars, 3v3 Zone Wars, oh man, the audiences you'd attract, I mean, that's just high octane. It is the best of the best, just fighting and fighting and fighting, and that's it. There's no downtime. Like, there was just a lot of better ways I feel like they could have gone, and I'm disappointed with the way that it turned out. You know, we were talking about LANs a little bit earlier, and talking about globals last year. Just initial thoughts on globals this year as an event in person. Are you excited that they're bringing it to NA? And then, you know, like the actual competitive landscape going into globals.
I'm excited for it to go to NA. I've never done an event in NA.
Okay.
To this, yeah, there's been a bunch of like things I could have done in NA, but I've just never done an event in NA. So for that aspect, from a personal, I'm excited to work in America. I'm happy we're back to the 2-day final format.
Yeah.
Of games.
Yeah.
That's something I'm really happy about because, you know, I like it was cool what they tried with you know, last globals, but finals needs to be 12 games for me.
I think it is too.
I agree. Yeah. Of course, I think a typical FNCS Grands, you know, you have the 2-day format, and like we've talked about this with a lot of guests, but there is that downtime between day 1 and day 2 is just, it's magical, truly. I mean, there's just like, because they're like, okay, the day 1 leaderboard's over, everybody kind of got their jitters out, but then it's like whoever does the most work in that downtime, whoever makes the most adjustments and all that stuff, you know, you can have a completely different day 2. You can turn the entire tournament around, and it's not to say that day 1 doesn't matter, but it's to say that, you know, it is the blending of those days. How can you compete and adapt and then compete again? And it's just so beautiful, I think, to see that. But it really is like, that is the proof of a Fortnite player to me, is adaptability and you know, being able to adjust on the fly and just kind of take whatever comes at you, and have such a depth of knowledge of the game where you can make those necessary adjustments. Like, there are so many people who are so good, but if their game plan doesn't go their way, they just can't. They can't adapt. They can't adjust. And there's so many people that have consistent day one showings and then drop down the leaderboard on day two because they can't, they get surprise conned, or, just something changes in that downtime. So to me, like, that was even about, because I went to Raleigh, I went to Invitational, and just like I was after day one, people around me, because we were all talking, and it was just, oh man, I could go on about how magical that LAN environment was. But dude, like, people that are all there with the same passion level of the game, like level of passion for the game that you have, like, we were all just talking as if it was like Aussie's chat in real life. Like, it was just like, it was just wonderful. But we were all talking, and after day one, I was like, guys, we have no clue who's going to win tomorrow. I know who's on the top of the leaderboard. I know who we all think, but like, I mean, it's like, it was like 3 of the top 5 teams ended up in like the bottom half or something like that. It was something crazy, like, because you just never know. The adjustments are so crazy and so necessary. But yeah, I totally think, for an international LAN where you have the best from each region, that's going to be so much more complication than just like a grand finals where you've been fighting and conning these guys all season. I feel like that is really you need those 6 games on day one just to even like know who's who, what's going on. Like, and then again, you get to that, okay, who's going to do the most brain work here? And I feel like that's when you talk about the identity of Fortnite, or what makes Fortnite competitive so compelling, that is the secondary element of it to me. Like, you have the building mechanics, and I still stand by, like, basically anything that you throw that into could be competitive Fortnite to me. That's the identity. But the brain that you need to like really know this game inside and out, dude, I mean, they should start offering degrees for some of these people, because Fortnite is just competitive Fortnite, understanding a BR in that depth, but also a BR with those mechanics. Because, things like rotating dead side or congestion, things of those nature, like those very beginner Arab inside the mind series concepts, like, you'll get those in other BRs. Like, if you watch an Apex, you'll understand that. But there's infinite more levels to it than that when you add building and when you add all that stuff, because then congestion can be kind of anywhere in the circle. It doesn't have to, just be where natural high ground is or where the last circle came from, or so many elements. But truly, like, I mean, dude, some of like these kids, it's funny because some of them can be so stupid in their everyday life and so immature. And then you hear them talk about the game or the way that they think about the game, like the thought processes that are going on. You're like, whoa, are you Einstein? Like, yeah, I don't know. That it's just such a cool draw to me. And I think that is something that a lot of people cling on to, because it just, those IGLs and those coaches, like, dude, Blood X, I mean, he probably knows things that I could never even begin to think of. About the game, and I just find that so cool, the depth of it, because you've never truly mastered the game, whether it's the mechanics or whether it's the mental side, the mental aspect to it. I don't know, all of that. That kind of leads me into this question, because like Blood X, for example, is a full-time Fortnite coach. He's making a career off of this. Do you want to see that ecosystem of, like, of Fortnite kind of being able to support more full-time careers around competitive? Because even for some of the casters, it's becoming less and less that way, where they have to supplement it with more, with something else, some other business venture or something like that.
Yeah, I'd love it to. I mean, from a selfish perspective, of course, yes.
Yeah,
because I like doing this full time, right? But no, I think it'd be great if it could support more people. There's different ways you can sort of go about that, but I think that's a no-brainer. I think, again, it's something that has so much depth to it, and so many people are passionate about it, that to me, there's no reason why it can't support more people doing it as a full-time thing. And I think when you look at the direction that like Epic are taking Fortnite as a whole, where they want it to be this ecosystem, this platform, then if it's gonna be that, then I think it only makes sense that it can become something that people can commit their lives to genuinely.
Yeah, I was talking about this on stream the other day, because we were talking kind of about FaZe and all the FaZe cutbacks and shut down, like basically a shutdown and revamp and rebrand that they've been doing, and just kind of the state of esports and the response to that, and like, why did they make those decisions? Why did they cut down their content creator roster so much? All this stuff, but I kind of got into this idea, this theory, or whatever you want to call it, that I was articulating of like, because they were saying like, why did they drop almost all of their Fort people? They dropped everyone, I think, for replays as a content creator and Epic Whale as a competitor in their Fortnite. And like, I was kind of getting into this, like FaZe has this idea of branding, that they want to be a lifestyle brand. They kind of want to do that LA streetwear punk skater type vibe, and that doesn't really fit with Fortnite and the little kid aspect, or whatever you want to call it. Like, it's a kid's game, and all that stuff. But my thesis was kind of this, like, in this industry, you have Fortnite and you have everything else. It is just such a titan in the industry, and like, it is kind of its own standalone thing compared to the rest of gaming, compared to the rest of content, like, it is its own sub niche that takes up so much, that it's kind of its own beast to deal with. And I feel like that's only becoming more and more true. But I mean, like, dude, you see, I mean, when all these streamers blow up on Twitch, for example, what is one of the first things that they do? They start playing with clicks, or they start, like, they will do a Fortnite stream. I mean, Kai Cenat did it. Lacey, when he got big, obviously got big off of Fortnite, but Sketch started playing. Like, I just see this very interesting thing where it's like, it's such a big dominant thing, and I feel like there's space, in that realm, in that sense. I feel like there's space for it to grow even more, because it's already one of the biggest ecosystems in gaming. It's one of the best places that you can be. It's just, I mean, I think, I don't remember what episode we mentioned this on, but like, Go Goated's all-time peak, the 3v3 Go Goated map that's ultra popular, is bigger. Its all-time concurrent player peak is bigger than Rainbow Six Siege on Steam. Like, the scale of, these creative maps, not even the main BR, is bigger than some AAA titles. I just, when you think about the scale of Fortnite and where this game is going, and like you said, they are transitioning into being a gaming metaverse, a game hosting platform. Like, Fortnite will be kind of an all-encompassing umbrella in a sooner time than you can blink, realistically. I think that opens avenues. Like, if you are involved in Fortnite to some capacity and you have achieved something in that, you have so much more sway in the industry than I think people think, because it's just, you have done it on kind of the massivest scale that exists already, which is so interesting, because brands are so unwilling to kind of enter that as of right now. And I guess that's kind of where I want to get into next. Like, what, because we've talked about this several times, of like, is it just the players, the way they act, the way they are? Is there something more to it? Like, what would need to change for brand inclusion to be higher, to where, money could start to kind of inflow into the game and competitive and the whole ecosystem?
I think it would. I think a lot of that stems from, again, just like where they see the value and where the value is being created. I think the problem that we've had in Fortnite, again, is just that in the past, like, a lot of these brands have felt burnt because they've tried to do things and there's been lack of success because there wasn't enough buy-in from, certain people in the community, and a lot of the people who went to didn't approach things in the right way. But these relationships can be rebuilt. I don't think that's a Fortnite specific problem. I actually think that's like a general, like, gaming problem. I think that's happening a lot, right? Like, just when you're looking at, like, a lot of sponsorships, in gaming that are consistent, at least, are just very endemic, right? Just like brands who are trying to market to that space because their products in that space.
Yeah.
But there's room for these things, and I think, especially with, like, the case of Fortnite, like, things like UEFN are helping that.
Yeah.
And
so many brands are doing activations in it. It's great. Like,
100%.
every company seems to have a Fortnite map now, which is just kind of odd to, like, really think about and sit down. I mean, I can't remember who it was. Some, like, you're like, this is the last company on earth I would expect to have a Fortnite map experience, but they did. Yeah.
And I think the key thing is that a lot of, once you get these people in the space, if they can have success in the space,
Yeah.
and they stay here, they'll quickly realize, well, one of the best ways we can market is through a lot of these competitive players, right? Like
Yeah.
even when you look at the UEFN ecosystem, a lot of the people who have the most stable, consistent maps are competitive based people because you know that is like they know how to market to this community well.
Yeah.
And so like naturally, I think we'll just see more sort of collaboration there as things continue to go by.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm sure I know the answer to this, but I may be surprised. I mean, do you think that the direction of competitive Fortnite is good right now? Like you have high hopes, high prospects for the future of competitive.
I do. I think we need to be doing much more though.
Mm.
Um, like I do think it's good, and based off of things that I know about things going on, I think things are good. I think even some of like just the more public things like say to me that there's signs that things are good, but ultimately I think we can be doing more. I think more people need to be testing the boundaries and pushing the boundaries of even just smaller things that maybe people think are, you know, minuscule.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I like for example, right? Like just viewing experience. I don't
Mm.
see people having conversations about how we improve viewing experience in Fortnite.
Mm.
Everyone's just sort of like content about it. Everyone's just like, yeah, the viewing experience is what it is, and we just nobody even thinks about it. Nobody talks about it.
That was
I
one of the
think viewing experience
first.
in Fortnite is bad.
Yeah, that was
I
one of
think
the
it's bad.
first things like that I noticed when I started to say, okay, I actually think that competitive is going to go in a good direction. It was like one of the very very early signs was when they did the actual website with the feed, and then you had the clean feed, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
like they're they're actually thinking about these types of quality of life things for a
yeah,
competitive enjoyer. Like, I mean,
yeah,
obviously things like the clean feed were really made for like Aussie and people like Aussie. You know,
yeah,
where they can like the fact that they are not, you know, the Epic is not really competitive with them because they know that like Aussie, for example, is one of the backbones of the entire Fortnite competitive ecosystem and the
yeah. And
viewership and
things
all
like clean
that.
feeds are mainly for other language broadcasts, right? So people who are
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
viewing parties in
100%.
German, Spanish, those type of people, right?
Yeah, I mean the respective, you know, people of their region that fill that niche and their language that do that, you know, 100%. Um, yeah, when I said Aussie, that was kind of the vein that I was getting on as well. Is there's kind of a respective Aussie for each language in each region, and that's such a cool thing. But they're not competitive with that. They're embracing of those creators and figures and whatnot. But yeah, I hear where you're coming from. I think in that regard, and I think that maybe that's just those types of conversations, um, may be over the head of a lot of the audience, because a lot of them they just don't think in that vein. They're like
Yeah,
they know how to complain, but they don't really think along the lines of like, okay, well then what would actually be a solution? How do we make this better? How do we begin to
for
spark
sure.
those conversations about that? And I think that just points to kind of the inherent immaturity and age and just kind of the vibe of a lot of the
It's
Fortnite
the
scene.
Fortnite classic.
Yeah.
The Fortnite
Um,
classic.
but
Give me
You're
a sec.
good
I'm
though.
gonna step away for
Yeah,
a
yeah.
sec. Give me a sec. I'll be right back.
yep, yep.
You said it in the text under.
All right.
It was good.
All right, we're back. Um, sorry for that little break, folks. Just little technical difficulties, we'll call it. No, life happens. It's fine. Yeah, no. So I kind of I think we're at a good point to kind of start wrapping up. So we have two traditional last questions that we ask
Okay.
every guest, and you know the first one is just this is your time to plug. What can we see from you in the near future? You know, any events for you coming up? Any gigs? Are you running any of your own? Perhaps I don't know.
So when it comes to the world of Leven2k, you guys will be able to see me on the broadcasts and whatnot as usual.
No.
As sort of mentioned earlier, I started back up with FNTasia podcast, which is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, been really fun to do, and you know, seems like people have been enjoying it. So looking to just keep grinding towards that. Um, but we also got two other shows on the way.
Okay.
So Hotline FN's coming back. I don't know how many people
Yeah.
listening to this would remember Hotline FN.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
but Hotline FN will be coming back. It's a much more interactive show. It's a call-in show, so it's for everybody to call in and give your thoughts and be able to have a conversation. I'm hosting that with Ozzy, so
Nice.
myself and Ozzy are going to be running that. Love to have you guys call in as well. The two of you.
Oh,
I'm
there
sure
we
you guys
go.
come in with some great insights. So
Yeah.
I want to see you guys there on that first show. It's an NA friendly time as well. So
Okay.
I can
Sounds
see
good.
you guys there.
I'll have to cook up a crazy good question to boggle your minds.
Good
Yeah.
take or something. Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
And then on top of that, the third show I got coming out, I've not actually said much about that, but plan for that. This is an exclusive for you guys.
Okay. Love it.
The third show is actually called Ahead of the Curve.
Okay.
And it's a show that I'm going to be running with pros. The idea behind it that is going to be pros sort of only. And the people I'm hosting it with at the moment, again, it's trying to do things with pros can be a nightmare, but
yes, it
I'm
can.
Hosting it with at the moment, trust me, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. The people I'm hosting it with right now, at least, are Pink and Miro. So
okay, goats.
So,
yeah.
The goal of that is to just have like conversations with players about things that nobody would ever know because we don't.
Yeah,
much
sure,
sure.
Yeah.
So
love that.
Should be started. Hopefully next week we can get the first episode of that going. But
that's awesome. I was going through our comments the other day in YouTube Studio, and one of the ones that I got, somebody was watching the Cooper episode, which was we recorded that with him before he won globals. We recorded that with him after his second place in his first first real grands, and he was just like, dude, like, this was so cool. I've never heard this perspective from a pro, all that stuff. So sounds like you're addressing something that a lot of people want. And I think, it is. It's like so many kids look up to these guys and they don't know so much of the process that goes on in the background for these guys to be at the level that they're at and achieve the things that they're achieving. So that kudos to you. That's super awesome. That'll be something that I think we start recommending for sure for people. Because, obviously we're more kind of content and story based. So I don't feel like you're directly competing with what we're doing. And that's it's always a positive for me. No, so that's super cool. And then the last question that we always ask, if you were to give one piece of advice, this could be casting related, this could be Fortnite related, this could be life related, to the audience that you haven't, obviously said thus far, what would it be?
I think the most valuable skill anyone can learn is communication.
Right.
And improving your ability to communicate gives you power in this world that is untapped. I can attribute every success in my life to the ability to communicate. And, if you can really harness in on that, that's one thing that's a long-term goal of mine anyway, is to at some point dedicate a lot of time into helping people improve that specific skill, independent of Fortnite or whatever. But yeah, work on improving your communication skills, working on charisma, body language, understanding how to understand people, how to build rapport with people, and really make good impressions on people. Just how to make friends. So many people go about life, they don't know how to make friends, they don't know how to meet people and really sort of explore the world for what it is. So I'd say that'd be the biggest thing I'd tell people to work on. And whatever you do in life, be passionate about it and try and do something you enjoy and you genuinely feel excited about every day that you get to do it. So I
don't have much to add. I agree with both of those wholeheartedly. The communication thing, that's one that we haven't really, I don't know if we've heard that said yet as one of the answers. And it's everything. I know for me, I always tell people when I'm looking for jobs, I'm like, if you get me in an interview, I'll nail it. That's the only stage that I need to get to, is as long as I can get in front of people talking, I know that I know how to talk my way into that and convince them that I am the best guy for the job. And it is, man. And so much of that, dude, it's small stuff, but in a very practical sense, your grammar, how you present yourself, even on Twitter, man, learn to write yours learn the right theirs, like
Yes,
learn
please.
basic spelling. Like I mean, even small stuff like that is so psychologically powerful, because I know for me, like if I'm reading DMs, for example, and somebody uses the wrong your, it immediately makes me think lower of them, because I'm just like, you didn't even take the time to like, and I'm not saying it has to be ingrained in your brain, it will over time, but like attention to details like that, and like you said, in your communication, that goes such a long way. So much of psychology says that people decide on things extremely quickly, like within the first 5 seconds of meeting somebody, they know whether they like them or not, like things like that, and content, you hear this all the time too, like the first 30 seconds of a video, people decide whether they're going to watch the whole thing or not, like all of this stuff. So communication really is it's optimizing your communication, and you don't have to sound like Einstein. It's not about using
Not at all.
crazy vernacular or anything. It is just about like optimizing your communication to be able to articulate what you are trying to say, to communicate efficiently, to communicate respectfully and professionally, and all that stuff will take you so far, because life really is about connections.
Okay.
And that is the best.
Sure.
Communication is the bridge to connection, and so that's, yeah. We'll leave it with that, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to yet another installment of the Ghost Comms podcast. We will have all of Levin's stuff linked below. Obviously, if you are a fan of competitive Fortnite, you probably already know who he is. But we'll have, him linked below. Go listen to his podcast if you're interested in competitive and all this stuff like that, and be looking out for his other shows coming soon. As always, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and obviously the video version here on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe if you made it this far. Hit that notification bell to never miss an episode with all of your favorite people in the Fortnite space. And we'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.
Hey, everybody.
Peace.